What's up, guys? We're here to go over UFC Vegas 70, KRYLOV versus Spann. But real quick, don't forget to check out Chris Lytle's podcast. The guy I did the interview with, he's a legend. His show's got all kinds of legends from the UFC and MMA and Japan and everywhere. They talk about how the sport originated, all kinds of cool stuff. And check out my show as well. We're both available on iTunes, Pandora, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, all that. Now let's get to the card. So, some pretty good fights on this card, guys. We lost a couple of ones. I guess nothing too good. I guess Philly and Lucas Almeida would have been good if we didn't lose it. And I record these so early, so there's no telling what's going to change in between now and the time the card actually happens. So, because UFC Vegas 69 hasn't even happened yet, and I'm recording this. But let's get down here to start at the bottom. We've got Erick Gonzalez taking on Darius Flowers. Yeah, sorry, my notes are a little bit out of order because they switched the card around. So my bad, guys. So Erick Gonzalez is 31 years old. He's 5'11 with a 75-inch reach. He's 14-7 and 0-2 in the UFC. So he hasn't been able to get it going in the UFC. He got knocked out by Jim Miller. He got submitted by Terrence McKinney. And he's got good striking. He showed that on the regional scene. He had some power. He's got some finishes on his record. Just like I said, it hasn't carried over into the UFC. He struggles with the wrestling and grappling, and well, there's not a whole lot of positives that I was able to find on the guy. I mean, he looks good on the regional scene, guys. And just when he came to the UFC, he stepped up in competition. Just hasn't been able to get it going, and he needs to work on his head movement, and he needs to throw longer combinations. Um, he does have a power. There's always that to worry about, and his punches are pretty fast. But and in this spot, I don't really know how well he's going to do against this guy. Darius Flowers is 12-5-1. He's 28 years old, 5'9" with a 71-inch reach, and this is UFC debut. It's kind of weird. He had quite a few losses, some KOs and subs, and then he went on a 3-fight win streak. And right before the Contender Series fight, which he won, he was a big slam where he injured the guy's shoulder, and the guy had to quit or whatever. But he's got a lot of KOs on his record. He's got pretty good striking. He's a good wrestler. He's really strong. We didn't get to see much out of him on Dana White's Contender Series. Had to go back and watch a few of his other fights from the regional scene. But yeah, I'm pretty confident in this guy. He's pretty good. He's pretty talented, and he's super powerful. And his fight on the Contender Series was up at 170. So I don't know if sometimes Tapology gets this stuff wrong. This could be, I don't know, maybe it's at 155, but it could be at 170, and Erick Gonzalez could be going up for all I know because they've had it wrong last week on one of the fights. So I guess if Darius Flowers can make the weight and it's at 155, he's a pretty good sized guy, but I think he can make the weight, and I'm pretty sure he could get the victory here. I'll be taking him in the spot, and I think he can get the KO here. Round one or two KO, and it's not a bad money line on him, especially with Erick Gonzalez has been struggling in the UFC. So uh, I'll be getting to my bets later on this. Next up, we got Jose Johnson taking on Garrett Armfield. Um, so Jose Johnson is 15-7. This is going to be his UFC debut, and he's coming off a victory over a guy that was 10-0 on the Contender Series. And he's got really good leg kicks. He stays busy off of his back when he's on the bottom. He's got good scrambles. He throws elbows from the bottom that are really good, really sharp elbows. And he definitely knows how to sweep well. I saw him do that. Um, he fought out of a really deep Darce choke on the show, so he's got pretty good submission defense, and he stays calm and works his way out of it. He's got a pretty good ground game for a guy who mainly uses his striking. He's got a lot of KOs on his record. He's a really long, rangy guy. He's 6 foot tall at bantamweight, so there's not a lot of those. Um, I did see him get taken down a few times. Like I said, he's got a pretty good ground game as far as off his back and good scrambles to get back to his feet. If Armfield wants to get a victory here, he's going to have to use his wrestling. And on the stand up, I don't know that Armfield's going to have much for Jose Johnson in this spot. He's got really good elbows and knees in the clinch. He's got good power, and he really uses his range well. He's going to have a 4-inch reach here. He's taking on Garrett Armfield. He's 8-3 and 0-1 in the UFC, and his UFC debut was against David Onama, which is no easy debut. Um, Onama's just kind of on a other level than him at that point. As before, Nate Marquardt, kind of exposed David Onama for his bad cardio, but he was a college wrestler and he's got pretty good boxing. Once he's on the inside, he throws good combinations. Basically, I think this fight's gonna probably come down to like kind of like Johnson's last fight. Giving up the takedowns early and winning in the later rounds, or winning a decision on damage. I was tempted on an Armfield pick here, but yeah, I'm gonna go with Jose Johnson in this spot. I think he's gonna be able to use his range really well. He's got 4 inches of reach, like I said, so I'm gonna go with Johnson by decision. I don't know if he's gonna get a decision or get a KO here or anything, but I'm gonna take him to win by decision. Next up, we got Hailey Cowan taking on Allin Perez, or is it Allen? Whatever. So Hailey Cowan is 7-2, and this is going to be her UFC debut. A lot of people making their debuts on this card. She's fighting out of Waco, Texas. 31 years old. She's going to be 5'8" with a 69-inch reach. And this is her UFC debut. She shows quite a few finishes on the regional scene, so that's always impressive. You don't see that as much in women's MMA, but this is a bantamweight fight, so you do see that more with the bantamweight and featherweight fighters. Um, but she's pretty well rounded. She's going to have the size and the reach advantage here. Neither of these girls have fought the best competition. Their opponents had pretty small records, which could possibly explain why they both have quite a few finishes on their record. But I do like Hailey Cowan. She's pretty well rounded. She appears to be really strong. Well rounded. Her striking looks really good. Like I said, decent power. We're just curious to see how it all holds up against the better competition as she's going up, in the sport. So she's taking on Allin Perez. She's 7-2 and 0-1 in the UFC. She lost her UFC debut to Stephanie Egger by armbar. And I would say that both these girls' weaknesses are probably their submission awareness and defense, even though they do have good takedowns and stuff, but they do struggle with that. They both have power and they both strike pretty well. I see this fight playing out on the feet. Perez is dropping down to 135 here, so we'll see how she does if she struggles making the weight. But I'm going to take the Texas girl here to win by decision, Hailey Cowan. Next up, we got Ode Osbourne taking on Dennis Bondar. And, I've got a really, sore history with Ode Osbourne because I'm a big fan of his, but every time I put money on him, he gets knocked out, and then when I don't, he ends up getting a good win. And I know he's really talented, he's a good size for the weight class. He's got good striking. He switches stances well. He throws really fast kicks. He's super well rounded. He's got good submissions. But like I said, every time I put money on him, he gets knocked out. So with him, it's just his chin's my only worry. I honestly think he should consider moving up to bantamweight and giving that a shot. Maybe that would help him with the chin issues, but you can't really fault him for the flying knee knockout from Manel Kopp. But I was just kind of surprised in his last time out. I expected him to get the win over Tyson Nam, and Tyson Nam caught him with a good hook. And so he does have holes in his game. Like I said, the chin's a little bit worrisome. He does have some issues with the striking defense a little bit. He kind of keeps his hands super low, so it leaves his chin out there in the air, and he doesn't really tuck his chin. But he's 31 years old, 5'7", 72-inch reach, 11-5. Um, he's 3-3 in the UFC, so this is not a fight that I'd be putting money on. But he's taking Dennis Bondar on. He's 30 years old, 5'6", with a 69-inch reach. He's 16-4, and this is going to be he's 0-1 in the UFC. He lost his debut to Malcolm Gordon. He had an arm injury in that fight, so they had to stop the fight. and he's got a lot of finishes on his record. He had an arm injury, like I said, in the last fight, so hopefully he's recovered from that. He's been out for almost a year at this point, so um, he's good on the feet. Good on the ground, nice takedowns. It's kind of tough to see how that holds up. In the UFC. I know Ukraine doesn't usually have the best you know history of fighters here of late. They've had quite a few guys come over and they didn't do so well. But this guy is actually really talented. Him and Nikita KRYLOV both are probably two of the better fighters to come out of Ukraine in a long time. And he's pretty good. So like I said, I'm kind of torn on this because of my history with Ode. I want to pick him, but he's let me down so many times. But I'm going to do it anyway. I'm just going to stay away from the money. I'm going to pick Ode Osbourne, and I'm going to say he gets it done by KO. Round 1 or 2. Hopefully he comes through, but I'm not brave enough. So next up we got Jordan Levitt taking on Victor Martinez. Jordan Levitt is 10-2. He's 27 years old, 5'9", with a 71-inch reach. He's 3-2 in the UFC. So he's like he's a really weird dude. you know, um, he's got a weird style. His striking isn't very good, but he kind of finds a way to make it work. He throws a lot of kicks. He's a really good grappler. That's his strong suit. That's his specialty. That's giving credit where it is due, because he is a good grappler. But honestly, he's so one dimensional that I'm surprised. He's made it as far as he has in the UFC. I guess he was kind of too busy, learning how to twerk or whatever instead of learning how to use his striking better. But I would say it has to be embarrassing, to get beat by Jordan Levitt and he's over there twerking after the fight's over or whatever. But his striking needs a lot of work. He does find a way to make it work. He doesn't get hit as much as you would think for somebody that doesn't have very good striking. He kind of uses lots of kicks to keep people back, and then he tries to work his takedowns and stuff. And like I said, he's a really good grappler. He's got all the good takedowns and takedown defense, all that. So he's going to be taking on Victor Martinez. He's 13-4. This is his UFC debut. He is 31 years old, 5'8", with a 70-inch reach. So he's going to be giving up an inch of reach here. And so I like this guy. He's a heavy hitter, and he's from Texas. He's on a 7-fight win streak. He's not the biggest lightweight. I bet. I bet if he wanted, he could probably make 145. He's got fast combinations, pretty good sprawls. He does have a BJJ black belt, and he throws push kicks to the legs, which I like to see. I did see him giving his back kind of when he was trying to stand up from the bottom position, trying to get back to his feet, which you don't really want to see him do that against a guy like Jordan Levitt. Jordan Levitt's too good with the takedowns and really good at transition to the back, so he's not going to be able to do that against Levitt. Um, so his fight on Dana White's Contender Series or the guy he fought on the Contender Series was actually really good, really tough guy. That was a pretty close fight for sure. He could have lost that fight, and I did see him get caught a few times. He needs to move his head more whenever he's entering the pocket. Move his head off the center line, and he won't have to worry about that much with Levitt, but he's going to have to be able to stuff those takedowns and land the heavy hands. And I wish I could pick Martinez in this spot, but like I said, I did see him getting taken down and struggling with the grappling in a few of his fights. So I do think that it's just a matter of time before Levitt like really gets exposed one day and gets KO'd. But I wish Victor was the guy that was going to do it, but unfortunately, I gotta pick Levitt here to win by decision or maybe by submission. As much as I hate saying that. Let's see what we got. Next up, we got Nurlo Aliev taking on Rafael Alves, and yeah, this is a pretty interesting fight. I thought breaking down the tape on it, and everybody's really making a they're kind of making a really big deal out of this Aliev guy. So um, Aliev is 23 years old, 5'10", with a 72-inch reach. He's 8-0. It's going to be his UFC debut. He's coming off a big finish win by ground and pound on the Contender Series, which is It's actually his only finish on his record. He's got a lot of unanimous decisions. You know, he kind of usually gets top position and is kind of pretty happy to hold it there and just kind of grind from that spot. So uh, you know, if this guy fights, you know, like he fights, you know, the way you would expect, you know, one of these Russian guys to fight. Um, you know, he's very aggressive. He's got, you know, a good sambo background, forward pressure, you know, lightning fast, you know, on the takedowns, and you know, he's I've seen him get caught in, you know, some submissions and work his way through them. So he may not have very good submission awareness, but he's got good defense. Um, you know, he uses his striking enough to get you to think about his hands. You know, and then he gets that takedown. And once he gets the takedown, he's very good from top position. Like I said, he does struggle a little bit if someone's putting the pressure on him, you know, and has him walking backwards. And I did see him eat a lot of leg kicks and you know, in a couple of his fights and on the Contender Series fight as well. Um, you know, seemed like he was having a lot of trouble avoiding leg kicks. He wasn't checking them. He's got good elbows from the top. You know, his last fight was an improvement, like I said, because normally he just kind of grinds out from the top position and gets a decision. But I'm really curious to see how his takedowns are going to be. You know, going up in competition. You know, and to some guys that have been in the UFC, veterans of the UFC. And or if you know, because like I said, the guys that I saw him fighting didn't really seem like they had very good takedown defense. You know, excuse me a second, had to get some water. Um, yeah, he hadn't fought the best of competition, so and they didn't seem like they really had that great a takedown defense. So I'm curious to see how he's going to hold up, and he's going to be taking on Rafael Alves. He is 32 years old, 5'8", with a 68-inch reach. He's 20-11 overall, and he's 1-2 in the UFC. And he's a super explosive guy. He was actually doing really well against Drew Dober in the beginning of the fight, but I think he kind of gassed out. Um, you know, he's got good jiu-jitsu. He's got really good submissions. He's got big power. You know, he hasn't had an easy fight in the UFC yet. You know, he did beat Mark Diakase, and he went to a decision with Damir Ismagulov, which looks pretty good because Ismagulov's really good. You know, he's very experienced, very talented. You know, everybody's going with Aliev in this spot. You know, and I mean, Alves is going to be giving up a little bit of height and reach, but he's very explosive and he does a lot of creative stuff. You know, he throws some little crazy foot sleeps that you don't really see a lot of people, you know, use. Um, yeah, he throws very heavy handed fucking strikes and you know kicks to the body and legs. You know, great guillotine choke. You know, honestly, man, I don't know what everybody's thinking going with Aliev in this spot. You know, he hasn't fought really any good competition. So I know Alves does tend to gas out, but I'm going to take him in this spot, and you know I'm thinking he's going to get the win in the first round either by knockout or by guillotine choke. So I'm going with Alves in this spot, and you know maybe Aliev proves me wrong, maybe he gets the takedowns, but this is going to be the toughest fight he's ever fought by far, and the most explosive, most powerful guy that he's fought in by far. So Alves is going to be big plus money, and it wouldn't hurt. Just like I said, I'm probably just going to throw a little something on him, you know, just because. Not a big bet, but you know, a little something. Next up, we got Gabriel Fernandez taking on Jasmine Jasudavicius, and so Gabriel Fernandez she is 29 years old, 5'6" with a 67.5-inch reach. She's 8-1. It's going to be her debut in the UFC. She's got pretty good boxing. She's actually a boxing coach down in the town she lives in Brazil. She's not the biggest flyweight, but she's pretty good size for the weight class. She has a decent reach. She's got pretty good power. She's got a couple of finishes on her record. You know, I think she had a submission due to punches from ground and pound, and just a couple of you know regular submissions as well. She has good kicks. She's got a pretty active guard. I did see her getting controlled a little bit on the ground by somebody that was quite a bit smaller than her. but she was able to find her way back up and tee off on her opponent, and ultimately get the win in that fight from body shots. And her last win was over someone who was 9-4. Um, before that, before the ground and pound fight. Um, she won by second round guillotine choke, and that was probably one of the most experienced fighters she's fought thus far. Who was that? Yeah, Caroline Martins, is who it was. Before that was the submission to strikes. Um, she's going to be taking on Jasmine Jasudavicius. She's 7-2 and 1-1 in the UFC. Her last win was over was it Kay Hansen? Yeah, it was Kay Hansen, unanimous decision. And her last fight was to Natalia Silva. She lost a decision there. She was a lot bigger than Kay Hansen in that fight. She had the height and the reach. Um, Fernandez is definitely going to have the striking advantage in this fight, and I would say that Jasmine definitely has the advantage in the grappling. Um, Jasmine will have a little bit of height and a little bit of reach. And I'm thinking basically what it comes down to is if Jasmine can get the takedowns, I could see her getting a decision win here. If she can't get the takedowns, she's probably going to get beat up on the feet for 3 rounds by Fernandez. Which everybody's picking Hernandez in this spot, and I will say that Fernandez hasn't faced a grappler as good as Jasmine yet. On the regional scene, and I wouldn't put any money on this, but I guess for the sake of making a pick, I'm going to go ahead and pick the underdog. I'm going to pick Jasmine. I'm going to say she gets the takedowns in this spot and wins a unanimous decision. Call me crazy. Next up, we got Alex Reyes taking on Trevor Peek. Trevor Peek was pretty impressive. He can definitely take a lot of punishment. I don't know if anybody else went back and watched his Contender Series fight, but Alex Reyes is 36 years old, 5'11", with a 73-inch reach. Um, he's 0-1 in the UFC, and he's actually been out for over 5 years. He got knocked out by Mike Perry in his debut by a big knee. He was a very experienced fighter before coming to the UFC. He had a lot of wins. Had quite a long win streak that he was on before he got knocked out in his UFC debut. In his debut, he was kind of struggling with the Muay Thai clinch. Perry had him, with the Muay Thai clinch and hit him with a knee. And maybe he retired after that fight. He was been out for 5 years, and just now changed his mind and decided to come back. And he's 37 years old now, and he's going to be fighting, at lightweight. So not the best look there. He was really talented, before. We don't know what he's been doing, for the over 5 years that he's been out. Don't know if he's just hopping back in here for a paycheck. He's going to be taking on Trevor Peek. He's 28 years old, 5'9", with a 70-inch reach. He's 7-0. It's going to be his debut. He's got tons of finishes on his record. I think actually all of his pro wins have been by knockout. He was an underdog in a Contender Series fight against a super tough opponent that was way bigger than him, and I really like this guy. He sounds like he's like a real country. Like I have kind of a Texas accent, but this guy really has like a country accent, like he's from Alabama or Tennessee, and he struggled with addiction in the past. He's overcame all that stuff, and I'm always a fan of a comeback story, so glad to see that. Like I said, the guy he fought in the Contender Series was way bigger than him. He had 6 inches of reach on him. He fought off the takedowns pretty well. Every time he got a takedown, he popped right back up immediately. He did eat a lot of big shots. He was really getting his ass kicked in the first round. He managed to come back after all that, and ended up getting a was it a finish? Yeah, it was a finish, I believe. And he got a knockout. He was throwing all kinds of like crazy jumping kicks and stuff like that, but he's got a really good chin. He's got super good cardio. He's able to keep up a crazy pace for 3 rounds. Um, so I mean, I will say that it didn't look good him getting the crap kicked out of him for that first round, but he's definitely been more active than Reyes has been. So he's definitely more active. He's younger. He's going to be learning, or he's going to look better every time we see him. So I'm definitely going to be Trevor Peek in this spot. I'm going to take him by knockout. Maybe he weathers the early storm and gets a KO in the second or third round. Next up, we got Mike Mallot taking on yohan Lainesse. And give me a second, guys. I'm gonna grab some water. Mike Mallot's pretty exciting. So both of these guys are pretty exciting. So Mike Mallot is 31 years old. He's 6'1" with a 73-inch reach, and he's 1-0 in the UFC. He's coming off a knockout of Mickey Gall. I mean, yeah, it was a good KO, but it's Mickey Gall. He fights in the southpaw stance. He switches back and forth though. He's primarily a southpaw. He's got really good combinations. He did eat a few big shots in that fight with Mickey, but he ended up landing a huge left hook that put Mickey out. Just made him nosedive into the canvas. So he's got big power. He's pretty well rounded. He mainly relies on his striking, but he does have the grappling. He can get the takedowns. He's got a few submissions on his record as well. Quite a few KOs. He's well rounded for sure, and I'm looking forward to see what he's going to be able to do in the UFC. Further on from this point, he's taking on yohan Lainesse, and he is 30 years old, 6'1" with a 76-inch reach. He's going to have 3 inches of reach in this spot. He's 9-1. He's 1-1 in the UFC. And, I really like this guy. I think he's got a lot of potential. He's got really big power, but he has a really bad cardio. He always comes out and puts a beating on people for the first round. But if he doesn't get the finish, he kind of is gassed out for the rest of the fight. So, honestly, as much as I would like to pick Lainesse in this spot, I've got to go with Mike Mallot here. I don't know if he's going to be able to get a finish on Lainesse, and I could see it was basically what happened in the last two fights of, Lainesse. The Gabe Green fight, he was putting a beating on the guy in the first round, and then he gassed out and ended up getting finished. His last fight, he barely won that fight. I thought he could have lost it, and I had money on him too. It was to Darian Weeks. He looked good at first, and then he kind of coasted through the last two rounds because you could just tell he was gassed out. So, like I said, this guy's really, really got a lot of potential, and he's got a lot of power, and he's pretty good, but he's just got to fix that cardio situation, before I could ever confidently, go with him on this. So, I'm going to be taking Mike Mallot in this spot by KO. I don't know, maybe round two, maybe Lainesse has a good round and gasses out, and Mallot gets the finish. So next up, we got Tatiana Suarez taking on Montana de la Rosa. And Tatiana's been out for quite a while. I want to say like 3 years. But she was the big deal, before she went on this long hiatus with some injuries and stuff. She's 8-0. She's 5-0 in the UFC. Like I said, we've been waiting on this for her to come back. She was the next big thing. She's been out battling injuries. Let's see how long she's been out. Yeah, almost 3 years, 8 months. Pretty close to 4 years. So it's been a while, and so she's really good, a really good grappler. She got really good submissions. This is a girl who's beaten Alexa Grasso, who is about to fight for a title. So, that shows you how good she is. Like I said, her grappling is some of the best. The only thing that scares me is that all of her other fights were at 115, and this one's up at flyweight. So we got to see what she's going to look like, up a weight class after being out for so long. And she's a really big favorite in the spot already. She's like a minus 400, and the lines, like, there's barely any lines out right now. They're hard to track down. So, I understand why she's so big of a favorite, but I wouldn't be risking anything on it right now because she's going to be up a weight class, like I said, and she's been out so long. So, as good as she is, I don't know that I would take a risk on this fight, without seeing how good she is when she comes back. And as Montana De La Rosa, she doesn't really have the best record in the UFC. She's 28 years old, 5'7", with a 68-inch reach. She's 12-7-1. And let's look at her UFC record here. So she's 5-3-1 in the UFC. Last fight was a unanimous decision loss to Macy Barber. She had a knockout before that, Ariana Lipsky. She's kind of been back and forth on the loss win. But it's one of the people that came from the Ultimate Fighter show, and had a decent run. She's pretty talented. She's got good striking. Um, Not a whole lot of power. She's got more submissions than she does knockouts. So she's only got one knockout uh, on her record. So I'm definitely gonna pick Tatiana Suarez in this spot, but I wouldn't be surprised if Montana De La Rosa takes advantage of Suarez. She's been out for a long time. Maybe her cardio doesn't look that great. Maybe De La Rosa is able to come back in the later rounds and control. But I think if Tatiana Suarez has still got anything of what she had before, she should be able to get the win in this spot. But I wouldn't risk a whole lot of money on this fight, guys, with her being out that long. So next up, we got Augusto Sakai taking on Dontel Mays. Augusto Sakai, he's been knocked out 4 fights in a row now. So he's 15-5-1. He's 31 years old, 6'3" with a 77-inch reach. And like I said, he's been knocked out 4 times in a row. I can't go with a guy who's been knocked out 4 times in a row. I know he had a lot of promise, and everybody, was thinking he was going to be a really big deal at one point, and it just hasn't happened in the UFC. I don't know, what is he? He's 0-4 in the UFC. So I guess he did actually have a couple of wins when he first came in. He came off the Contender Series. He beat Chase Sherman. He beat Andrei Arlovski. He apparently beat Marcin Tybura. That's crazy. And he beat Blagoy Ivanov, but then he's been on a terrible run after that. He's been knocked out 4 times in a row by pretty good people. Alistair Overeem, Rosenstruck, Tai Tuivasa, Sergey Spivak. But man, 4 times in a row, this is another fight you probably want to just stay away from. He's taking on Dontel Mays. He is 31 years old, 6'6", with an 81-inch reach. He's 9-4, and he's 2-2 in the UFC. And Dontel Mays, he showed good grappling at times, but it was like against Josh Parisian, so not a guy that is a very good grappler. He doesn't get knocked out a whole lot. He's been submitted a few times. His last fight, he got a beating put on him by a guy, but that guy turned out to be on steroids. Hamdi Abdulawab, is that how you say that? The guy turned out to be on steroids, so that's an overturned fight. Doesn't count on his record anymore. But he hasn't looked particularly good either. But I mean, if I had a choice, I wouldn't even pick on this fight. But I'm gonna pick Dontel Mays just because Augusto Sakai has been knocked out 4 times in a row. So don't put any money on it, guys. Stay away from this fight. But I'm gonna pick Dontel Mays just because of that fact. Because I'm never gonna pick somebody who's been knocked out 4 times in a row. Next up, we got Andre Muniz taking on Brendan Allen. And so Andre Muniz is really good. He is one of the better, probably the best submission artists in the middleweight division right now. Excuse me. He is 33 years old, 6'1", with a 78-inch reach. He's 23-4 and 5-0 in the UFC. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about this. If you guys are familiar with the UFC, these guys have both been pretty active lately, especially Brendan Allen. And I think we're all pretty familiar with what they're good at. And Andre Muniz has some of the best jiu-jitsu in the game right now. Period. He's proved in his last fight that his striking's pretty good as well. He was able to go out there and do a lot of striking in a 3-round fight with Uriah Hall. And he's fighting from the southpaw stance. He's got good single legs, good trips. He's really good. He's super talented. He's actually on a 9-fight win streak right now, 5 of which are in the UFC. And he's taking on Brendan Allen. He is 27 years old, 6'2", with a 75-inch reach. He's 20-5 and 8-2 in the UFC. And Brendan's really good. He's very well rounded. He's got good striking. His striking's come a long way. He used to not be that good, but he's really made a lot of improvements. And he's always been a really good grappler. He's got good submissions, but as far as I don't see him being able to out grapple Muniez, and I don't see him having submissions as good as Muniez does. Um, I'm definitely going to be taking Muniez to win this fight by sub. Uh, I'll say round 3. I'll say Allen and him have a pretty competitive fight, and then later on in the fight, Muniez will be able to get the submission. So next up, we got the main event. Nikita KRYLOV taking on Ryan Spann. Now, a lot of people are thinking, I saw people saying that this is an easy layup for Ryan Spann after his big knockout at Dominant Reyes. Well, I'll tell you that, to me, that win doesn't hold up, very well, because, Dominic Reyes is his chin, he's been knocked out like 3 times in a row now. So, I mean, I hope that he doesn't keep fighting, because I don't want him to get super bad brain damage or anything. But, after his fight with John Jones, he's just had a really bad go of it, which is unfortunate because he's a really good fighter. But, so Nikita KRYLOV, he is 30 years old, 6'3", with a 77.5-inch reach. He's 29-9. Let's look at his UFC record here. He's 10-7 in the UFC, so that doesn't seem like it's very good. But if you look at the people that he's competed with, he's fought some tough people. I mean, he actually won a round against Aliev. I think he won the first round of that fight. He's got some losses here. He's got some all right wins too. I guess he's been in the UFC twice. He was gone for a while and came back. Let's see what he's been doing since he came back all the way. Let's see if I can remember. So he was gone 2017, came back in 2018, and he lost to Jan Blachowicz. Then he beat Oven St. Preux by submission. He lost to Glover Teixeira, which was a split decision, which, considering that Glover went on to become the champ, is a pretty good look. He beat Johnny Walker. He had that fight with Aliev. He lost by unanimous decision, but he did get the first round. He definitely didn't get ran through by Aliev at all. And he was beating the living crap out of Paul Craig and then stuck his head in that triangle choke. A lot of fighters have made that bad mistake. A lot of people have. Even our champion right now, Jamal Hill, made that mistake. So, and then he went on and he knocked out Alexander Gustafsson. And then his last fight with Volkan Ozdemir, he did get caught in the first round, and it was pretty scary because he was looking pretty bad. He got caught, he was wobbled, he kept getting caught with punches, but he did survive it, and he ended up coming back and taking over the fight. And he's got good striking. It's kind of like I don't want to say like a full on karate type striking kind of thing, but it's kind of similar. But and he actually has pretty underrated grappling and good submissions. And I've seen him, like I said, he was able to get the takedowns on Aliev in the first round of their fight. He controlled him, controlled his back for a little bit and stuff. So he's actually a really good fighter, and a lot of people are counting him out here. And I don't get it. If you go back and watch his fights, he's super talented. He's got really good striking. He's looked better and better every time we've seen him. And I expect him to look even better now. He's only 30 years old. He's been around a while. He's fought all kinds of people, some of the best people, all over the world. So he is definitely a talented fighter. I don't know what all these people are talking about, Oh, it's an easy layup for Ryan Spann. So Ryan Spann is 31 years old, 6'5", with an 81.5-inch reach. So he's going to have a good bit of reach in this spot. He's going to have the height, a couple inches. He's 21-7. Let's check out his UFC record. His UFC record, 7-2. So that doesn't look too bad, but we'll have to look at that competition to really break it down. So he came in, he got a win over Luis Enrique. He beat up Antonio Nogueira, which is basically a guy who should have been retired a long time ago at that point. He beat Devin Clark. Went to a split decision with Sam Alvey. That's not a good look. He got knocked out by Johnny Walker. He knocked out Misha Serkinov. He got destroyed by Anthony Smith. I mean, he got destroyed by Anthony Smith out in that fight. He didn't look like he had anything for Anthony Smith in that fight. And I don't think Anthony Smith would be able to run through Nikita KRYLOV like that. Probably be a really good fight. But yeah, he had nothing for Anthony Smith. And he beat Ion Cutelaba. Anybody knows that Cutelaba is just going to stick his head right in a guillotine choke, so I don't make too much out of that. I think Cutelaba's been beat 3 times in a row now by guillotine choke. I don't remember, at least 2. And then he got that knockout of Dominic Reyes, which, that was tough to watch. So, basically Ryan Spann, he's got big power, but if you can get out of the first round, you will get the win. He's kind of proven that. Anthony Smith was able to exploit his grappling and is actually catching him. I mean, he doesn't have very good head movement. His striking defense isn't that great. He's a big guy, so he can take a shot. But I mean, if you go back and watch the Anthony Smith fight and just see how he was just kind of styled on by Anthony Smith, and he didn't seem to have very good submission defense or anything. He just kind of got ran through super quick, and that tells me a lot because I do think that Nikita KRYLOV is definitely up on par with a guy like Anthony Smith, and so although there's a good chance that Spann could get land that big shot early on in the fight, I'm going to be picking Nikita KRYLOV to win here. He's probably going to use his grappling. He's a smart fighter. I imagine he'll avoid the big strikes early on and press Spann up against the cage, try to get the takedowns, probably use some trips, and try to get a submission. So I'm going to take Nikita KRYLOV by submission, round 2. All right, guys. Well, that's all my picks. So let's talk about some bets. So there's a couple of plays on here that so far are what I got anyway. I got to play on Andre Muniez at minus 195. He's going to wind up being a big favorite quick. That line just came out. I got to play on Mike Mallot at he's at minus 200. And debating on a small play on Rafael Alves. And got to play on Darius Flowers at minus 190. And I'm debating on a play on Nikita KRYLOV as well. But, like I said, I'll make another video if a whole bunch changes. And you can always go to my Instagram, highkick_fight picks. I always post my bets on there and all my picks if anything changes. So that's it for right now, guys. I appreciate it. Had a pretty good week last week. UFC 284 just happened. 3 of my 5 bets hit. Had a play on Joshua Coulibaly cash, a play on Islam Makhachev, and a play on Jack Della Maddalena. So ended up doing pretty good. Did make a mistake with the Shane Young play, but hey, it happens. At least I came out with some profit. So appreciate you guys. I guess I won't be doing a contest or anything since nobody tried to win the autographed Holly Holm that I had up for UFC 284. So maybe I'll put it off until I got some better stuff for you. But I appreciate it, you guys. Thanks for listening. Have a good one.